Jaya Radha Madhava Kunda Bihari Radha Madhava Jaya Radha Madhava Kunda Bihari Radha Madhava Jaya Gopi Dana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Dana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Brajajanarandana Yashodanandana Brajajanarandana Jamuna Tira Vanasari Jamuna Tira Vanasari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunda Bihari Radha Madhava Jaya Radha Madhava Kunda Bihari Radha Madhava Jaya Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Radhe Jaya Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Radhe Radha Madhava Radha Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Gaur Pimanandi Jayam Vishnupada Paramahamsa Parivrajagacharya Stotra Satta Sri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhai Charanarvind Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki ISKCON BBT Founder Acharyas Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada ki Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki Harinama Sankirtan ki Granthara Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jainitai Gaura Pimanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Sri Guru and to Sri Gauranga, all glories to Sri Prabhupada. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Sarakaya Chaksuranmilitam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Juta Parakamalam Sri Gurun Vaisnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Ragunatam Ditam Tvam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Visakanditam Scham He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kancana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Suti Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Tirubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyaiva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. This second short mantra you have to listen carefully, otherwise you might miss it. Om Surabhyai Namaha. You missed it. Om Surabhyai Namaha. Om Surabhyai Namaha. Mukam karoti vasalam pangom langayate girim yat kripa tamaham bande Sri Gurum dinataranam yat kripa tamaham bande Sri Gurum dinataranam. Hare Krishna. Welcome to our morning Bhagavatam class. And today we are reading from second canto, chapter 6, entitled Purusha Sukta Confirmed. And we have, which verse is on the board? 30? 31. 3-1. Okay. We're reading both actually. Since it's on the board, we'll read 31. Yeah. Narayane Bhagavati Tad Idam Vishwam Ahitam Grihita Mayoru Gunaha Sargadao Agunaha Swattaha Narayane Bhagavati Tadidam Vishwam Ahitam Grihita Mayoru Gunaha Sargadava Guna Swataha Narayane Bhagavati Tadidam Vishwam Ahitam Grihita Mayoru Gunaha Sargadava guna svataha. Narayane Bhagavati Tadidam Vishvam Ahitam Grihita Mayoru Gunaha Sargadava Guna Swataha. Bhagavati Tadidam Vishvamahutam Jita Mayoru Gunaha Matajis, ladies. Narayane Bhagavati Tadidam Vishvamahitam Tihita Moyoru Gunaha Sagadava Guna Swataha. Narayane Bhagavati Taditam Vishvamahitam Grita Moyoru Gunaha Sagadava Guna Swataha. Narayane Bhagavati Tadidam Vishvamahitam Rihita Mayoru Gunaha Sagadava Gunasvataha. Narayane, unto Narayana, Bhagavati, the personality of Godhead, Tat idam, all these material manifestations, Vishvam, all the universes, Ahitam, situated, Grihita, having accepted, Maya, material energies, Uru Gunaha, greatly powerful, Sarga Adau, in creation, maintenance and destruction, Agunaha, without affinity for the material modes, Swataha, self-sufficiency. Before reading the translation to text 30, I will read text 30. Both were given to me, so I presume it was not covered before. So text 30, I'll just read the text once and go immediately to the translation and purport. Tataś manavaḥ kāle ījire ṛṣayo pare pitaro vibudhā daityā manuṣyāḥ kratubhir vibhum. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Thereafter the Manus, the fathers of mankind, the great sages, the forefathers, the learned scholars, the daityas, and mankind performed sacrifices meant to please the Supreme Lord. Purport. The daityas are devotees of the demigods because they want to derive the greatest possible material facilities from them. The devotees of the Lord are eka-niṣṭha, Hare Krishna, absolutely attached to the devotional service of the Lord. Therefore, they have practically no time to seek the benefits of material facilities. It was fine before.
Hare Krishna.
Very often human intervention often spoils. Continuing the purport, I need 4 hands. Therefore, they have practically no time to seek the benefits of material facilities. It's okay. I'll work it out. Because of their realization of their spiritual identity, they are more concerned with spiritual emancipation than with material comforts. And today's text, 31, translation: all the material manifestations of the universes are therefore situated in his powerful material energies, which he accepts self-sufficiently, although he is eternally without affinity for the material modes. Kindly repeat after me. All the material manifestations of the universes are therefore situated in his powerful material energies, which he accepts self-sufficiently, although he is eternally without affinity for the material modes. Purport. The question put by Narada before Brahma concerning the sustenance of the material creation is thus answered. Material actions and reactions, as the material scientist can superficially observe, are not basically ultimate truth in regard to creation, maintenance, and destruction. The material energy is a potency of the Lord, which is displayed in time, accepting the 3 qualities of goodness, passion, and ignorance in the forms of Vishnu, Brahma, and Shiva. The material energy thus works under the supreme spell of his lordship, although he is always transcendental to all such material activities. A rich man constructs a big house by spending his energy in the shape of resources, and similarly, he destroys a big house by his resources, but the maintenance is always under his personal care. The Lord is the richest of the rich because he is always fully complete in 6 opulences. Therefore, he is not required to do anything personally, but everything in the material world is carried out by his wishes and direction. Therefore, the entire material manifestation is situated in Narayana, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The impersonal conception of the Supreme Truth is due to lack of knowledge only, And this fact is clearly explained by Brahmaji, who is supposed to be the creator of the universal affairs. Brahmaji is the highest authority in Vedic wisdom, and his assertion in this connection is therefore the supreme information. So this chapter is in regards to Lord Brahma answering different questions being asked by his son, one of his 10 sons, who is his disciple, Sri Narada Muni. We will recall how Narada was a little perplexed, wondering if there's anyone superior to you, my dear father. And of course, this resulted in this conversation where Lord Brahma is clarifying his position as being subordinate, although he is very, very powerful, having created this, what we call secondary creation. So in the purport to text 31, we'll come back to 30 actually in a few minutes, Srila Prabhupada points out that the greatest mistake of materialistic persons, in particular scientists, is that they cannot see beyond this material cosmic manifestation. As a matter of fact, they think they are able to control and manipulate. Some years back, in every so many years they have, what is it? Like a world, I forget the name now, like major display. That year it was actually 1967 in Montreal. They called it, they gave it the name Man and His World. Man and His World. We have this false conception that this world is our world, isn't it? It is our world to manipulate and to experiment with and to exploit. So here the statement is, of course, not only here in so many places, Bhagavad Gita, aham sarvasya prabhavu mata sarvam prabhartate iti madva bhajanti mam buddha-bhava samanvitaha. One who is able to know that there is something, and even beyond that, that there is someone who is directing, there is some intelligence. And intelligence, Prabhupada explains, means there must be a person. So Krishna is that supreme person who is conducting all the affairs of this material world. And the 3 incarnations, they call Guna Avatar, Brahma, Lord Shiva, and Vishnu are referred to here. It is easy enough to do something or to create something, to build something. It is easy enough also to destroy it. What is the most difficult is to maintain. We all know how it's easy enough to come to Krishna consciousness in one sense, or to start. And it's also easy to leave, but it's very difficult to maintain Krishna consciousness, isn't it? That's the most difficult. So, most important point being mentioned here is that this material world is a manifestation of energies and powers that are totally beyond our comprehension, totally beyond our understanding. People are still debating in this 21st century whether the earth is flat or round. The debate, the debate is still there. When we actually read sections in the Bhagavatam describing the universe, the cosmology, we become bewildered, isn't it? One devotee from Australia a few years ago began to give his understanding, of course not his personal understanding, but based on Shastra, of what is called Vedic geography. Vedic geography is all described actually in various Puranas. Actually everything that we need to learn, everything that we need to know is actually there in the Shastra. And therefore modern science, which is totally disconnected with Shastra, we can understand is therefore making so many mistakes, having so many, speculating basically about what this world is about, how it functions, etc. Now in the previous verse, because I had mentally mentally prepared myself to speak on the first verse that was given to me, it speaks about different authorities. That Brahma is the original authority, as we know. He's the original created living entity from Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. And he, because he's so powerful, he also creates powerful living entities, namely the Prajapatis, also the Manus. There's mentioned here the Manus. And there is from Manu, as we know, the Manu Smriti, Manu Samhita, which actually for most people in the modern day world is not at all easily acceptable. Of course, Srila Prabhupada mentions how the Manu Samhita is meant to be the law book for mankind, isn't it? It is part of Shastra, but yet people since the last century, we won't mention any names, have been burning the Manu Samhita. Because there are sections, especially in regards to caste and divisions in society, which some people find very find objections to, yes. So, of course, that's why it mentions in the Shastra that, just like an ordinary person, if an ordinary person starts to study books on law or medicine, he's bound to make so many different mistakes. One needs to study under the direction of someone who's mastered the particular science. Therefore, in the Brahma Samhita, which is given to us by Lord Brahma, that verse we find about Vedeshu Durlabham Adurlabham Atma Bhakto, that the Vedic literature is very, very difficult to understand. They cannot be understood by ordinary persons. They can only be understood by the process that is recommended, that means under the guidance and direction of spiritual authorities. So this whole cosmic manifestation, this whole material world exists. Of course, we know this is what we are endeavoring to learn and to understand, to deepen our understanding every single day when we attend Bhagavatam class. This whole material cosmic manifestation is very much in detail explained in the Vedic literatures, and our purpose as devotees actually is to simultaneously understand the workings of this material nature. Just like the Manus. Manus are personalities that very difficult to understand because they live for such an extended period of time, and they govern not only this particular planet, they govern so many different planets, different parts of the universe. And it is one of the 10 subject matters that is studied actually in the Bhagavatam, which is in relation to dynasties, isn't it? So many great dynasties producing so many great personalities who have, they are mentioned in the Bhagavatam because they have governed in a very ideal manner. That's a whole, of course, subject matter in itself, subject matter of governance. Dynasties. Dynasties where individuals were knowledgeable about the Vedic culture and were actually following very strictly. I was meditating on this a little bit, how in connection with what is called family tradition, or when someone in the Vedic culture, when someone is when arrangements are made for someone to get married, one studies what is called the family lineage, you know, because the more compatibility there is between the boy and the girl, then there are better chances that the marriage will be successful. And we may think that, well, of course, in Kali Yuga, especially outside of India, where the Vedic culture has been practically non-existent for, well, since the beginning of Kali Yuga, we find a very mixed situation. I mean, there's no family lineage. But we should understand that for us as devotees, and for us who are members of the Krishna Consciousness movement, this is an important element to reintroduce or to reestablish. Actually, family lineage, which helps to determine whether someone coming from a particular line is qualified or not in a particular way, is something very important. We as devotees individually, and we as members of a very important, I mean the most important movement in the world today, Krishna Consciousness movement, one of our responsibilities is to actually help re-establish, maybe we cannot immediately say the word dynasty, but definitely to re-establish good progeny, good lineage. Srila Prabhupada wanted that children be born in Krishna conscious families, and Prabhupada was very much, glorifying the children born in our movement, children born through a Vaishnava father and Vaishnava mother. But of course we know that for a child to be the most ideal child, most ideal birth, there are specific guidelines, beginning with the garbhadhana samskara, isn't it? In other words, this is one of the very important responsibilities that we have, especially those who are householders, to understand why these different samskaras are given in the Shastra, so that we can have topmost progeny. In other words, to create brahmanas, we need individuals who have the maximum natural qualities, where they can more easily take up, especially to the systematic studies of the Vedas, which means actually Gurukula, are the expectation of the Krishna Consciousness movement, the expectations of the movement introduced by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, as we have all heard many times, is to bring in, to reintroduce a golden era, isn't it? The golden age of Satya Yuga. This is actually the mandate of the Krishna Consciousness movement. And this requires, naturally, that we have individuals who are well versed in the Shastra, who understand the importance of this particular aspect I'm speaking about of lineage, and therefore who will become very responsible fathers and mothers. The other point which has been mentioned in this chapter, in previous texts, is how we can, not only we can, but we should give sufficient attention to this material creation, seeing it, understanding it as directly Krishna's energy, because it is, isn't it? The Bahir Anga Shakti, external energy, is directly created by Krishna, although it is separated from him. And that creation in itself is very wonderful, very, very beautiful as well. And it is very much our duty and responsibility to maintain it, to properly utilize, which of course gets into the whole theme of ecology, isn't it? Which gets into many different themes as well. So it means very important for us to know that what is given in the Shastra is there in the Shastra for our benefit, for helping the conditioned souls in the material world to live as ideal life as possible. Part of that, of course, is to be aware of the religious practices in terms of samskara that I just referred to briefly. And so that means that we have a responsibility. There's a clock, but one cannot see the clock because of the reflection. Okay, got it. So, in other words, very important for us as devotees to, of course, hear on a regular basis what is described in the Shastra and learn how to utilize this material energy, which is actually very complex, but we can unravel some of that complexity by proper study of the Shastra. And we must know that actually everything that is given in the Shastra, and coming back to the Manu Smriti, even though it's not only the Manu Smriti, there are so many different sections in the Vedas that are very difficult to understand or to accept. And we see even how in some commentaries by some of our acharyas, there seems to be some even differences amongst acharyas. So adding to the complexity of the situation. The point being mentioned here is that Lord Brahma, because he heard and received all this knowledge directly from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, so therefore that knowledge is perfect and complete. If we are unable to understand that perfect and complete knowledge, we should know, we should conclude that we are the ones who are imperfect and incomplete, isn't it? Yeah. Many years ago, when Prabhupada was in America, one devotee by the name of Purushottama was a great fan of the modern scientists. At that time it was, they were about to land on the moon. And he was totally convinced that yes, they are landing on the moon. And on that day of, because there was big publicity, everyone in the whole world was, watching, and so he brought a television in front of Prabhupada. A television. He wanted to show Prabhupada, it's happening right now, I brought a television. Please watch, we can all watch together. All the devotees were watching, and sure enough, the landing on the moon took place. And this devotee, Purushottama, was in total ecstasy. Haribol, it landed on the moon. And Prabhupada was looking at it, and he looked at Purushottama and he said, they didn't land on the moon. And it was very hard for him actually, because the television is showing that they're landing on the moon, isn't it? So the idea, Prabhupada later on explained, because it's not supported in Shastra. You can't just go to, because the moon is a heavenly planet. You have to change bodies to go there. So Prabhupada has such staunch faith, full faith naturally in the Shastra, and this is a very important aspect that we should imbibe as well. We should develop that type of strong faith and conviction in the Shastra. So I had a note on the desk here that flew away when the fan, that we have to finish by 9 o'clock. We have a few minutes there for any possible comments or questions. And there's a microphone, and we have a runner with a microphone. Please.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, Dandavat Pranam. Thank you so much Maharaj for your class. Maharaj, my query is that, as you have heard, the Srila Prabhupada used to say that my mission is to introduce Brahminical culture, and I want that my devotees should be top-class Brahmans.
My mission is to introduce Vedic culture.
Brahminical culture.
Oh, Brahminical culture. Okay, yeah.
And my objective is to make my devotees top-class Brahmans.
Yes.
Yeah. On the other hand, we have seen that guno karma vibhāga. So as per the inclination, the people want to, become Kshatriya or the administrative class, or the Vaishya class, mercantile class, or the Shudra. So how we can harmonize both the things? That one hand, the Brahminical culture, on the other hand, the inclination towards administrative class, towards mercantile class. How we can understand?
Got it. Yes. Brahminical culture means not only Brahmana. Brahmana culture doesn't mean exclusively Brahmanas, although we should understand in the beginning Prabhupada was emphasizing to create Brahmanas. But Brahmana culture means the entire culture, Brahminical culture. Brahminical culture means the 4 ashramas, the 4 varnas and the 4 ashramas. So therefore, it's not contradictory. Brahminical culture means that culture where society is naturally divided into these 4 varnas. So when we understand it that way, then the contradiction goes away. It's not contradictory. Actually, the same, I was just reading the conversation between Professor Kotowski when Prabhupada went to Moscow. And Prabhupada was telling, that was in the early days, was telling Professor Kotowski that one of the purposes is to create Brahmanas. And then he replied, because he had studied the Vedas somewhat, well, he was telling this is going against the Vedas, because you cannot just have Brahmanas. There are also he knew that there are Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras. Then Prabhupada further explained that Brahmanas are the head, and from the head, all the other parts of the body will come. But first and most important is that if we don't have the Brahmanas, they cannot introduce the full culture, what is called Reminical Culture. So Reminical Culture means not only Brahmanas, but the whole spectrum. And that is also very much connected with what is being explained here, that this system of Varna and Ashrama is a very integral part, a very essential, I would say, part of this material creation created by Krishna himself, and therefore this needs to be balanced with our primary objective, which is self-realization. Yeah. Anyone else? Oh. Yeah, don't have to run too far.
Maharaj, regarding landing on the moon.
Landing on the moon. Yes.
When Srila Prabhupada says they did not land, how Purushottam Prabhu reacted and what happened?
How did he was totally demoralized. I think he eventually left the movement, I heard. So either we put our faith in the Shastra or we don't. If we put our faith on people who are imperfect, who are mainly trying to acquire knowledge by their speculation, then that will not give good result. Yeah. Hey, we still have a few minutes. Yeah.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, you explained about like those who want Krishna conscious child. So in our movement we see they just get married. So how do we define that? It's like before marriage also they should consider their astrological charts and other, or it's like the devotee, they just get married?
Okay, if I understand your question is that if people are devotees, should they just get married without considering looking at astrology or making their chart? Is it? Yeah. Well, Prabhupada did mention different things about astrology. At times actually kind of like it's not important. At other times he mentions, well, it is a bona fide science in the hands of bona fide, qualified persons. So for not only marriage, but also to traditionally to establish or determine the varna of an individual, one of the four principles or practices is to actually make astrological chart on the individual. So astrology is a bona fide science. It's part of Gurukul learning, and in the hands of a qualified person, it is very useful. Otherwise, we will not know when to break Ekadasi, isn't it? I mean, astrology, we would not know when to install deities. We would not, so many things we would not know. That's only contained in there, contained in the Vedic literatures. Sometimes devotees or non-devotees, they misuse that science, and therefore one has to know how to deal with the science of astrology. It's a bona fide Vedic science, and we have many qualified devotees who are practicing astrology and helping devotees in different ways. But it is not the, Bhakti is, when one is performing pure devotional service, then those considerations become less. But it doesn't mean that they should be totally forgotten. Yeah.
Maharaj, I just need little clarification, means for understanding. Like in the beginning days, we heard like Mandakini Mataji, she was praying, and in the London, like she should do whatever services his spiritual master says. And then Prabhupada comes and he says to her that, okay, you go to Russia and marry to this boy to whom she has not seen. Like that, some of the cases, how to reconcile also this one, like the instruction of a spiritual master.
Well, any instruction coming from Srila Prabhupada was a perfect instruction. No question asked. Yeah. Okay. Any other? Okay. Thank you all very much. Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Jai Srila Prabhupada ki, Gaura Pimanandi.